The stars belonged to the Zephyrian Confederation. They had owned them for 3,000 years, and everyone in the galaxy knew it. Their ships moved like silver ghosts through space, beautiful and deadly. When they came to a new world, they brought gifts first: food, medicine, technology. Then they brought rules. Then they brought war if the rules were not followed. War tactician Veltar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Star's Edge. The ship was a work of art. Its hull gleamed like polished mirror, and energy fields danced around it like blue fire. Through the great windows he could see his fleet. 200 ships, each one perfect, each one deadly. They moved in patterns that looked like a dance. Every ship knew its place. Every weapon knew its target. This was how civilized beings fought wars. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. Veltar's crew worked at their stations with calm efficiency. They had done this many times before. First contact with a new species was always the same. The new species would see the Zephyrian fleet and understand. Some chose to fight. Some chose to surrender right away. It did not matter. The outcome was always the same. "Report," Veltar said to his communications officer. "The new species calls themselves humans, war tactician. They come from the third planet of a yellow star they call Sol. Our long-range sensors show they have basic space travel, chemical rockets, metal ships with no energy shields. Very primitive." Veltar nodded. It was always the same story. Every few years they would find another young species taking its first steps into space. The Confederation had a duty to guide them, to teach them the proper way to live among the stars. Some learned quickly, others had to be taught the hard way. "Show me their ship," Veltar commanded. The main screen flickered to life. A human vessel appeared on the display. Veltar's long, elegant fingers drummed against his command chair as he studied it. The ship was ugly. It looked like a piece of metal someone had hammered into shape with crude tools. No grace, no beauty, no art. It was covered in strange bumps and angles. Primitive weapons stuck out from its hull like thorns on a dead plant. "How many ships do they have?" Veltar asked. "Only one. War tactician. It appears to be some kind of warship, but our computers cannot understand its design. The weapons are unknown to us. The hull appears to be made of basic metals and composites." Veltar almost smiled. One ship. The humans had sent one ship to meet the greatest military force in the galaxy. Either they were very brave or very stupid. In his experience, new species were usually both. The Zephyrian way of war was perfect. It had been perfected over thousands of years and hundreds of battles. Energy weapons that could burn through any material. Shields that could stop any attack. Ships that could move faster than light and strike from impossible distances. When the Zephyrians fought, it was like watching artists create a masterpiece. Every move was planned. Every shot was placed with precision. Victory was not just won, it was crafted. Other species had tried to resist over the years. The rock-eating Morvani had built ships as big as cities and armed them with weapons that could crack planets. The Zephyrians had destroyed them in 3 days. The insect-like Skrell had sent 1,000,000 small ships in swarm attacks that blocked out the stars. The Zephyrians had burned them all with surgical precision. The energy beings called the Flux had tried to fight without physical ships at all. The Zephyrians had found a way to cage pure energy itself. Every species thought they had found a new way to fight. Every species was wrong. There was only one way to win wars in space, and the Zephyrians had perfected it long ago. Overwhelming energy output. Perfect defensive systems. Ships that could survive anything and destroy anything. It was simple mathematics. The side with more energy always won. "What are they doing now?" Veltar asked. "They are broadcasting on multiple frequencies, war tactician. It appears to be some kind of greeting. They say they come in peace and wish to establish diplomatic relations." "Of course they do," Veltar said. "They all say that." "Open a channel." The screen changed to show the inside of the human ship. Veltar had to stop himself from wincing. It was even uglier on the inside than the outside. The walls were metal plates held together with visible bolts. Cables and pipes ran everywhere like the guts of some primitive machine. The lighting was harsh and white. There was no beauty anywhere. A human stood in the center of the screen. It was smaller than Veltar, with short dark fur on its head and skin the color of pale sand. It wore a blue uniform that looked like it had been made by hand. When it spoke, its voice was rough and strange. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Indomitable. We represent the human species and come seeking peaceful contact with your civilization." Veltar studied the creature. Like all humans, it looked soft and weak. No claws, no armor, no natural weapons at all. How had such a pathetic species even survived long enough to reach space? Their ship was held together with metal bolts and hope. Their captain looked like she would break if someone pushed her too hard. "I am War Tactician Veltar of the Zephyrian Confederation," he replied. "Your species is new to space travel. You do not understand the dangers here. We will provide guidance." The human's face changed in a way Veltar did not understand. "We appreciate the offer, but we're capable of taking care of ourselves." Veltar's crew exchanged glances. Did this primitive creature just refuse help from the Confederation? Did it not understand what it was looking at? 200 of the most advanced warships ever built, and this human thought her single crewed vessel was enough protection? "You misunderstand," Veltar said patiently. "This is not a request. Young species require guidance. It is for your own protection." The human was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. It was harder now. Colder. "War Tactician Veltar, we decline your guidance. We ask that you respect our sovereignty and withdraw from this system." Now Veltar did smile. They always tried to sound brave at first. It was almost charming. He had seen it 1,000 times before. The pattern never changed. First they would refuse. Then they would threaten. Then they would beg. Then they would surrender. Or they would fight and lose quickly. Either way, the outcome was the same. "Very well," Veltar said. "We will demonstrate why guidance is necessary." He cut the communication channel and turned to his weapons officer. "Charge the primary plasma array. Minimum power. We want to disable their ship, not destroy it yet." The plasma beam shot out from the star's edge like a finger of blue fire. It moved faster than light itself, crossing the distance between the ships in less than a second. Veltar watched with satisfaction as the energy struck the human vessel. The beam was set to minimum power, just enough to burn through their primitive hull and disable their engines. It would be quick and clean. Then the humans would understand who they were dealing with. The plasma beam hit the Indomitable right. In the center of its ugly metal hull, Veltar expected to see the ship's systems fail. He expected to see atmosphere venting from holes in the side. He expected to see the humans surrender. Instead, nothing happened. The beam struck the ship and simply disappeared. The metal hull glowed, red hot for a moment, then cooled back to its normal gray color. The human ship kept moving on its same course at the same speed. No damage, no systems failures, no surrender. "Weapons officer," Veltar said slowly. "Did you fire?" "Yes, War Tactician. Direct hit on target. Beam duration was 3 seconds at 15% power." Veltar stared at the screen. 15% power from a Zephyrian plasma array could melt through a mountain. It should have cut the human ship in half, but the crude metal hull had simply absorbed it like it was nothing. Increase power to 30%. Fire again. The second beam was twice as strong as the first. It hit the human ship in the same place and did exactly the same thing. Nothing. The metal glowed brighter this time, but that was all. The ship did not even slow down. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain Chen watched the alien attacks with calm eyes. The first beam had made the ship's hull temperature rise by 20 degrees. The second beam had made it rise by 40 degrees. Her engineering officer looked worried, but Chen was not. "Hull temperature is still well within normal limits," the engineering officer reported. "Those energy beams are heating us up, but not much more than flying close to a star would." "What kind of metal is their hull made of?" "Veltar's science," officer whispered. "It appears to be steel, War Tactician. Basic iron and carbon, but it is very thick, much thicker than any hull we have ever seen. Veltar felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Confusion. Steel was one of the most primitive metals in the galaxy. Every civilized species had stopped using it thousands of years ago. It was heavy and crude and weak, but somehow this steel was stopping his weapons. "How thick is their hull?" he asked. "Scanning now, War Tactician. The hull appears to be... This cannot be right. Report. The hull is 3 meters thick, War Tactician. Solid steel, 3 meters thick, covering the entire ship." Veltar's elegant features twisted in disbelief. 3 meters of steel? That was impossible. No ship could fly with that much weight. The engines needed to move such a massive vessel would be enormous. The fuel requirements would be incredible. It made no sense. "Sir," the communications officer said, "the humans are broadcasting again." Captain Chen appeared on the screen once more. She looked exactly the same as before. Calm. Unworried. Behind her, Veltar could see her crew working at their stations as if nothing had happened. "War Tactician Veltar," Chen said, "we registered 2 energy discharges from your vessel. We're reading them as weapons fire. This is your only warning. Stand down or we will consider it an act of war." "Your only warning?" Veltar repeated. "You dare threaten us? We just fired on your ship twice." "Yes, you did," Chen said. "And now you know our ships are tougher than they look. Last chance. Leave this system peacefully or we will defend ourselves." Veltar cut the communication again. He turned to his tactical officer. "Full power, all weapons. Destroy that ship." "War Tactician, are you certain?" "Full power might. Now. Every weapon on the Star's Edge fired at once. Plasma beams, particle cannons, fusion torpedoes, quantum disruptors." The space between the 2 ships filled with deadly energy. It was enough firepower to destroy a small moon. It was the most beautiful and terrible sight in the galaxy. Pure destruction. Perfectly controlled and aimed. All of it struck the human ship at the same moment. The Indomitable disappeared in a ball of fire and energy. For a few seconds, nothing could be seen except the burning light of the weapons hitting their target. Veltar smiled. No ship could survive that much firepower. No metal could withstand that level of energy. The humans had learned their lesson, the hard way. Then the fire cleared, and the human ship was still there. It was damaged now. Parts of the hull were glowing cherry red. Some of the strange bumps and angles had been burned away. But the ship was still intact. Still moving. Still dangerous. Impossible. Veltar whispered. On the Indomitable, alarms were ringing. The ship had taken real damage this time. Hull breaches in 3 sections. 2 of the main guns were offline. The shield generators that the humans did not actually have were showing red lights that meant nothing, because they did not exist. Hull temperature is critical in sections 5 through 7, the engineering officer reported. We're venting atmosphere to cool the metal, but the main structure is holding. Captain Chen nodded. She had expected this. Human ships were built differently than alien ships. They were built to take damage and keep fighting. They were built by a species that had spent thousands of years fighting wars on the surface of planets, where there was nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. Weapons, Chen said. Return fire. The alien ships had energy shields. Beautiful. Perfect. Energy shields that could stop any energy weapon ever built. They shimmered around the Zephyrian vessels like soap bubbles made of light. They had protected the Confederation for 3,000 years. They had never failed. They were designed to stop energy. The Indomitable did not fire energy weapons. The railguns along the human ship's hull came to life. They used magnetic fields to accelerate pieces of metal to incredible speeds. The projectiles were simple, just chunks of dense metal shaped like bullets, but they were moving at 10% of the speed of light. The first projectile hit the Star's Edge and passed through its energy shields like they were not even there. The shields were designed to stop plasma and lasers and particle beams. They had no idea what to do with a solid object moving at relativistic speeds. The metal bullet punched through the Zephyrian ship's hull like it was paper. It kept going. Through bulkheads and corridors and crew quarters, until it came out the other side. The beautiful, perfect ship suddenly had a hole straight through it. More projectiles followed. The railguns fired again and again, sending streams of metal death across space. Each bullet that hit made another hole. The Zephyrian ship began to leak atmosphere and sparks and pieces of itself. Veltar was thrown to the floor as his ship shuddered under the impacts. Emergency lights flashed red. Damage reports flooded in from every section. His perfect, invincible flagship was being torn apart by chunks of metal fired from a primitive cannon. "Shields!" he screamed. "Why are the shields not working?" "They are working, war tactician," his weapons officer screamed back. "The projectiles are not energy. The shields cannot stop solid matter." Veltar stared in horror as more holes appeared in his ship. Around him, his beautiful fleet was suffering the same fate. Ships that had never been damaged in 1,000 battles were being riddled with holes by simple metal bullets. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Zephyrian Confederation was losing a battle. And they were losing it to a species that fought with chunks of metal and ships made of steel. The humans, it seemed, had a very different idea of what war should look like. Captain Chen watched as more Zephyrian ships moved to surround her vessel. They were beautiful ships, she had to admit. They moved like dancers, each one perfectly in position. Their energy shields glowed like colored lights in the darkness of space. Any other species would have surrendered by now, faced with such overwhelming numbers and advanced technology. But humans were not any other species. "Engineering," Chen said into her communicator. "How are we doing?" "Hull temperature is dropping to safe levels, Captain. The venting worked. We've sealed the breaches in sections 5 and 7. But we lost 2 railguns in that last attack." "Ammunition status?" "Plenty of slugs for the railguns, Captain, but we might want to start thinking creatively soon." Chen smiled. Thinking creatively was what humans did best. "Understood. Stand by for new orders." On the bridge of the Star's Edge, Veltar was trying to understand what had just happened to his fleet. 12 ships had taken serious damage. 3 were barely able to move. His own flagship had 17 holes punched clean through it. The beautiful formations his captains had spent years perfecting were broken and scattered. "War tactician," his tactical officer said, "we are receiving requests for new orders from the fleet. They want to know how to fight these weapons." Veltar had no answer. In 3,000 years of warfare, the Confederation had never faced weapons like this. Energy they understood. Shields could stop energy. Armor could absorb energy. But solid objects moving at incredible speeds, their defensive systems had no answer for that. "Have our scientists learned anything about their weapons?" Veltar asked. "They call them railguns, war tactician. They use magnetic fields to accelerate metal projectiles. The technology is simple, but effective. Our shields cannot stop solid matter." "Then we adapt," Veltar said. "Order all ships to increase distance. We will engage them from long range where their primitive weapons cannot reach us." It was a good plan. It should have worked. The Zephyrian ships pulled back, moving beyond the range of the human railguns. They began firing from a safe distance, sending streams of energy across space. The human ship took the hits on its thick armor and seemed to ignore them. What Veltar did not understand was that humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. They had learned every dirty trick, every desperate tactic, every insane strategy that might give them an edge. They had fought in space for less than 100 years, but they had brought all their knowledge of war with them. Captain Chen watched the alien ships pull back and smiled again. "Helm, emergency burn. Take us straight at their formation. Full speed." "Captain, that's suicide. They'll concentrate all their fire on us." "They'll try," Chen said, "but they don't understand how human ships are built. Do it." The Indomitable suddenly accelerated toward the Zephyrian fleet. Its engines roared to life, pushing the massive ship faster and faster. The aliens immediately focused all their weapons on the approaching vessel. Energy beams and plasma bolts filled space like a deadly light show. But as the human ship picked up speed, something strange happened. The energy weapons became less effective. The ship was moving so fast that many of the shots missed entirely. Others hit at odd angles and glanced off the thick armor. The Zephyrians had to keep adjusting their aim, and their perfect targeting computers could not keep up with such unpredictable movement. "How are they moving like that?" Veltar demanded. "Their ship is too massive for such acceleration." "Their engines appear to be chemical rockets," War Tactician. "Very primitive but very powerful. They are burning fuel at an incredible rate. They will run out of fuel quickly then." "No, War Tactician. Our scans show they have enough fuel for hours of such acceleration." Veltar stared at the screen in disbelief. A ship that size should not be able to move like that. It should not be able to carry enough fuel. It made no sense. Everything about human ship design seemed to break the rules of physics. The Indomitable crashed into the Zephyrian formation like a battering ram. But instead of ramming the alien ships directly, Captain Chen did something even more unexpected. At the last second, she ordered the ship to spin. The massive human vessel began rotating as it flew through the alien formation. Its thick armor deflected energy shots in all directions. Its railguns fired continuously as it spun, sending projectiles in every direction. It was like watching a giant steel ball covered in spikes rolling through a crowd of dancers. Zephyrian ships scattered in all directions, their perfect formations completely destroyed. Some tried to follow the human ship as it spun past them, but they could not match its speed or predict its movement. Others fired wildly, hitting each other as often as they hit their target. "This is insane," Veltar shouted. "They are fighting like animals, but it was working." The human ship carved a path of destruction through his fleet, taking damage but dealing out much more. Every time the aliens thought they had it cornered, it would do something impossible. When surrounded, it would accelerate straight up and escape into open space. When low on ammunition for its railguns, it would ram smaller ships with its armored hull. Most shocking of all, the humans seemed to be enjoying themselves. Veltar could hear them on the communication channels, laughing and shouting encouragement to each other. They treated war like a game, like something fun to do on a quiet afternoon. "Captain," the Indomitable's weapons officer called out, "we're running low on railgun slugs. What are your orders?" Chen looked around the bridge. Half the alien fleet was damaged or destroyed. The other half was scattered and confused. But there were still too many of them, and her ship could not take much more punishment. "Time to get creative," she said. "Prepare to jettison Cargo Bay 7. Captain, Cargo Bay 7 contains spare parts and equipment. If we lose those supplies, we won't need spare parts if we're dead. Do it." The Indomitable opened its cargo bay and released hundreds of pieces of metal into space. Engine parts, hull plates, tools, spare equipment, everything floating in a loose cloud around the ship. The Zephyrians watched in confusion. Why were the humans throwing away their supplies? It made no sense. Then Captain Chen ordered her ship to accelerate again. But this time, instead of flying toward the enemy, she flew through the cloud of debris she had just released. The ship's magnetic fields grabbed the metal pieces and accelerated them forward like ammunition for a giant railgun. Suddenly, the Indomitable was firing again, but now its projectiles were wrenches and hull plates and engine parts. The improvised ammunition was less accurate than proper railgun slugs, but there was much more of it. The space around the human ship filled with deadly metal debris, all of it moving at incredible speeds. A Zephyrian cruiser took a direct hit from a spare engine part and exploded. Another ship was holed by a flying wrench. A third had its weapons array destroyed by a piece of hull plating. Veltar watched his perfect fleet being destroyed by flying garbage and felt something break inside his mind. This was not how wars were supposed to be fought. This was not elegant, or artistic or civilized. This was chaos, but it was also effective. "War Tactician," his communications officer said in a shaking voice. "The human captain is broadcasting again." Captain Chen appeared on the screen. Her uniform was torn and dirty. Her ship was smoking from dozens of hits, but she was still smiling. "War Tactician Veltar," she said. "You wanted to see how humans fight. Now you know. We don't just use weapons, we use everything. We turn our ships into weapons. We turn debris into weapons. We turn physics itself into a weapon. Do you want to continue this fight, or do you want to talk?" Veltar looked at what was left of his fleet. Beautiful ships reduced to floating scrap. Perfect formations turned into chaos. His entire understanding of warfare destroyed by creatures who fought with garbage and raw determination. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Zephyrian Confederation was ready to negotiate. Veltar stared at the human captain on his screen. Half his fleet was destroyed or crippled. His perfect formations were scattered across space like broken toys. And this primitive creature was offering to talk, as if she had not just humiliated the greatest military force in the galaxy. "You think you have won?" Veltar said, his voice shaking with rage. "You have destroyed some of my ships, but you are still outnumbered. Your vessel is damaged. You cannot fight forever." Captain Chen nodded. "You're right. My ship has taken a beating. My crew is tired. We're running low on everything we can use as ammunition." She paused and smiled again. "But you haven't seen what my ship was really built for yet." "What do you mean?" "I mean the Indomitable isn't just a warship war tactician. It's a ship killer. It was designed for one specific job: to fight enemies who have better technology than we do. Everything you've seen so far? That's just the warm-up." Veltar felt a chill run through his elegant body. "You are bluffing." "Am I?" Chen turned to someone off-screen. "Engineering, I need a full power reading on the main reactor." "Main reactor is at 40% capacity, Captain. All systems are green for full activation." Chen looked back at Veltar. "We've been fighting you with less than half power. Our main systems haven't even come online yet. We wanted to give you a chance to surrender before things got really ugly." "Impossible," Veltar whispered. "No ship can hide that much power from our sensors." "Our ship can. We learned a long time ago that sometimes it's better to look weak when you're really strong. It makes enemies overconfident." Veltar's science officer was frantically working at his station. "War tactician, I'm detecting massive energy buildup inside the human vessel. There are power systems we never detected before. The readings they're impossible." "Report. The human ship contains a reactor capable of producing more energy than our entire fleet combined. It's been running in minimal power mode this entire time." Veltar felt the bottom drop out of his understanding of reality. How could such a primitive-looking ship contain so much power? How had their sensors missed it? What other surprises were these humans hiding? On the Indomitable, Captain Chen walked to a secure panel at the back of her bridge. She placed her hand on a scanner and spoke clearly. "Captain Sarah Chen, authorization code Alpha 77 Tango. Request activation of primary weapon systems." The Xiu ship's computer responded in a calm voice. "Authorization confirmed. Warning. Activation of primary weapon systems will reveal ship's true capabilities to enemy forces. Do you wish to proceed?" "I do. Primary weapon systems coming online." The Indomitable began to change. Panels along its hull slid open, revealing weapons that had been hidden from sight. The ship's reactor hummed louder as more power flowed through its systems. Energy fields that looked almost like the Zephyrian shields began to shimmer around the vessel, but these were different, harder, more aggressive. Veltar watched in growing horror as the human ship transformed before his eyes. What had looked like a crude, primitive vessel was revealing itself to be something far more dangerous. Hidden railguns emerged from concealed compartments. Missile tubes opened like hungry mouths, and at the front of the ship something that made Veltar's blood freeze with terror. "What is that weapon?" he demanded. His science officer's voice was barely a whisper. "I don't know, war tactician. The energy readings are beyond anything we've ever seen. It appears to be some kind of particle accelerator, but the power levels they're enough to crack a planet." Captain Chen's voice came over the communication channel. "That's exactly what it is. We call it the Planet Cracker. It was designed to fight enemies who hide behind powerful shields and armor. It converts matter directly into energy and fires it in a focused beam. There's no known defense against it. You would not dare use such a weapon. The destruction would be visible across the galaxy." "You're right. It would be. That's why we really don't want to use it. But if you force our hand, we will. The choice is yours, war tactician." Veltar looked at the readings from his sensors. The weapon was real. The power was real. If the humans fired that thing at full power, it would not just destroy his fleet. It would probably destroy everything in this entire star system. You are insane, he said. Maybe, Chen admitted. But we're alive, and we're free. That's what matters to us. Around the Indomitable, the remaining Zephyrian ships were pulling back. Their captains could read the energy levels too. They understood what they were looking at. A weapon that could turn matter itself into a destructive force. The ultimate expression of human warfare. If we can't beat you with skill, we'll beat you with raw power. But Veltar was not ready to surrender. 3,000 years of Zephyrian dominance could not end here, destroyed by a single primitive ship crewed by creatures who fought with garbage and determination. All ships, he broadcast to his fleet, concentrate all fire on the human vessel. Everything we have. If we can destroy them before they can use their weapon. He never finished the order. The space around the Indomitable suddenly filled with explosions. But these were not weapons fire. They were mines. Hundreds of them, floating invisible in space until the Zephyrian ships got close enough to trigger them. The humans had been seeding the battlefield with mines during the entire fight. Every time they had jettisoned debris, some of it had been explosive devices designed to look like scrap metal. Every ramming attack had left behind hidden surprises. The Indomitable had been turning the entire star system into a weapon. Zephyrian ships began exploding all around Veltar's flagship. Beautiful vessels that had survived 1,000 battles were torn apart by simple explosive devices. The humans had mined the space lanes, the debris fields, even the areas where damaged Zephyrian ships were floating. How many mines did they deploy? Veltar screamed. Hundreds, war tactician, maybe thousands. They've been placing them throughout the battle. Our ships are surrounded. Veltar realized with growing horror that the humans had been planning this from the beginning. The entire battle had been a setup. Every tactic, every maneuver, every desperate-seeming action had been designed to lure his ships into position for this moment. The humans did not just fight differently, they thought differently. While the Zephyrians had been focused on the immediate battle, the humans had been planning 3 moves ahead. They had turned the entire star system into a trap. Planet Cracker charging to full power, Captain Chen announced. You have 30 seconds to order your fleet to stand down, war tactician. After that, we start turning your ships into energy. Veltar looked at his tactical display. Half his fleet was destroyed. The other half was trapped in a minefield. His flagship was surrounded by explosives, and pointing at him was a weapon that could unmake matter itself. For the first time in his long life, the great war tactician of the Zephyrian Confederation understood what it felt like to be completely, utterly, helplessly outmatched. All ships, he said quietly, stand down, lower shields, and power down weapons. The human ship had revealed its true nature at last. It was not just a warship, it was a predator designed to hunt creatures much larger and stronger than itself. And like all successful predators, it had waited until the perfect moment to show its teeth. The Indomitable hung in space like a metal shark, surrounded by the wreckage of what had once been the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. Its planet Cracker hummed with barely contained energy, ready to turn matter into destruction at the press of a button. The age of Zephyrian dominance was over. The age of human warfare had begun. The silence in space was deafening. The Zephyrian fleet floated powerless around the human warship like dead fish in water. Their beautiful formations were broken. Their perfect ships were damaged and defeated. For the first time in 3,000 years, the mighty Confederation had been brought to its knees by a single enemy vessel. Veltar sat in his command chair, staring at the tactical display. Red lights blinked everywhere, marking damaged ships and destroyed vessels. More than half, his fleet was gone. The survivors were trapped in a minefield, surrounded by weapons they could not see or understand. War tactician, his communications officer said quietly. The human captain is requesting to speak with you. Veltar nodded slowly. He had no choice now. His fleet was beaten, his ships were defenseless, and pointing at him was a weapon that could turn matter into pure energy. Open the channel. Captain Chen appeared on the screen again. She looked tired now and her uniform was stained with smoke and sweat, but her eyes were still sharp and alert. Behind her, Veltar could see her crew working calmly at their stations. They had just defeated the greatest military force in the galaxy, but they acted like it was just another day at work. War Tactician Veltar, Chen said. I want you to understand something. We didn't come here looking for a fight. We came in peace, hoping to make contact with a new civilization. You chose to make this a battle. You destroyed my fleet. Veltar said bitterly. We defended ourselves. There's a difference. Chen leaned forward in her chair. But now we have a problem. My government is going to want to know why their peaceful exploration ship was attacked by aliens. They're going to want answers. Veltar felt another chill of fear. If this one primitive ship could destroy his fleet, what could an entire human armada do? What do you want? I want to prevent a war that would cost millions of lives on both sides. I want to find a way for our species to coexist. But that means things have to change. The Confederation has ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. We have brought order and peace to hundreds of worlds. You've brought conquest and control, Chen corrected. There's a difference between peace and surrender. Real peace comes from choice, not force. Veltar was quiet for a long moment. Everything he believed about the galaxy, about the Confederation's role in it, was crumbling around him. What are you proposing? A new way of doing things. The Confederation can continue to exist, but not as conquerors. You become mediators, advisors, teachers. You help species develop instead of forcing them to submit. And when conflicts arise, you solve them with words instead of weapons. And if we refuse? Chen's expression hardened. Then humanity will enforce the new rules ourselves. And trust me, war tactician, you don't want to fight a war against my entire species. What you've seen today is just one ship, crewed by explorers and scientists. Our actual warships are much worse. The thought made Veltar's elegant features pale. If this exploration vessel could destroy his fleet, what could purpose-built human warships do? What could an entire human armada accomplish? You would force peace on the galaxy through war? Veltar asked. If necessary. My species learned long ago that sometimes you have to fight a war to end all wars. We'd rather do it through negotiation, but we'll do whatever it takes to protect freedom. Veltar looked at his tactical officer, who nodded grimly. They both understood the situation. The humans had proven they could back up their words with action. Refusing their terms would mean facing an enemy that fought with tactics they could not predict, weapons they could not counter, and a determination that seemed to border on insanity. What guarantees do we have that humanity will not simply conquer the galaxy themselves? Veltar asked. Chen smiled, but it was a sad smile. Because conquest was never our goal. We just want to be left alone to explore and learn and grow. But we've learned that sometimes the only way to be left alone is to make sure everyone else knows the cost of bothering us. Your species is very strange, Veltar said. You fight like demons, but you speak of peace. You destroy my fleet, then offer to help us rebuild our civilization. That's what makes us human, Chen said. We're full of contradictions. We can be the most peaceful species in the galaxy or the most dangerous. The choice is usually up to whoever we're dealing with. Veltar made his decision. He had been a war tactician for over 200 years. He had studied every form of combat known to the galaxy. But today he had learned that there was more to warfare than weapons and tactics. There was will. There was determination. There was the refusal to accept defeat even when facing impossible odds. The humans possessed all of these qualities in abundance. I will transmit your terms to the Confederation Council, Veltar said. I will recommend that they accept. Thank you, Chen said. I know this isn't easy for you or your people. Change never is. But I think you'll find that the galaxy is a better place when every species has the freedom to choose their own path. The communication ended, and Veltar was left alone with his thoughts. Around him, his bridge crew worked to repair their damaged systems and tend to their wounded. The great fleet that had entered this system was broken, but it was not destroyed. The humans had shown mercy even in victory. Perhaps that was the most terrifying thing of all. A species that could destroy you completely, but chose not to. A species that could conquer the galaxy, but preferred to explore it instead. A species that saw war not as an art form or a science, but as a last resort to be used only when all other options had failed. 3 days later, the Confederation Council voted to accept the human terms. The age of expansion through conquest was over. A new age of cooperation and mutual respect would begin. But in the depths of space, human shipyards were already building new vessels. Not exploration ships this time, but true warships designed, for one purpose: to make sure that freedom and choice remained protected throughout the galaxy. The humans had learned that the price of peace was eternal vigilance. The Indomitable began its journey home, carrying news of first contact and the birth of a new galactic order. Its hull was scarred from battle, its crew was tired, but its mission was complete. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in the only language that advanced civilizations seemed to understand: superior firepower applied with overwhelming determination. Captain Chen stood on her bridge, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, other species were learning about the humans for the first time. Some would welcome them as friends, others would see them as threats to be eliminated. But all of them would learn the same lesson that the Zephyrian Confederation had learned today. Humanity was no longer alone in the galaxy, and anyone who threatened human freedom or human lives would discover exactly what the species that had once fought wars with sticks and stones could accomplish when they put their minds to it. The dangerous warship had done its job. The galaxy would never be the same again. In the cargo bay of the Indomitable, engineers were already drawing up plans for the next generation of human vessels, ships that would be even tougher, even more adaptable, even more capable of turning the impossible into the inevitable, because that was what humans did. They took the rules of the universe and found new ways to break them. They looked at impossible odds and decided to fight anyway. They faced superior technology with superior determination and usually found a way to win. The aliens had thought they understood war. They had been wrong. War was not about energy weapons or perfect formations or elegant tactics. War was about the refusal to give up, even when everything seemed hopeless. And in that regard, humanity had no equal in the galaxy.